Hello, I'm Corey Newton from Newton Economics, and this video is directed to the Rob Astorino Campaign for Governor in New York State. I want to preface this by saying that my voter registration is not affiliated. I'm not affiliated with the Republican Party or the Democratic Party at all, so I want to say that straight up. The reason I'm making this video is because I think the campaign is missing a huge opportunity to hit Governor Cuomo, all of the Democratic Party and all of the Republican Party in the center of gravity of the main economic issues in New York State. So that main issue is economic growth versus economic development. So I'm going to put together this video. I have two ads in mind. One, to hit them in the center of gravity on economic growth versus economic development, and the other is how hydraulic fracturing ties into economic growth. And it's not up to me to turn these into 30-second ads. That's up to you. But I want to give you a broad outline as quickly as possible, and if you guys can take it and go, that would be good. So first, let's dive into the whole economic growth versus economic development question. Do you even know the difference between the two? Because everything is set up from the town level, the county level, and the state level of economic development. Economic development. What does that mean? What does that mean compared to what economic growth is? Well, let's read right out of the Evolution of Economic Thought textbook. So I'm not on the internet looking at something crazy. This is mainstream academic economic definitions. Economic growth is the increase of a nation's real output that occurs over time. It results from greater quantities of natural resources, human resources, and capital. Improvements in the quality of resources and technological advances that boost productivity. And we'll return to that. Economic development is simply the process by which a nation enhances its standard of living over time. Specialists in economic development analyze the forces and policies that cause or impede the rise of standards of living in low to moderate income nations. So is New York State a low to moderate income nation? To me, it's starting to look like a third world country. So we talked about a couple things as far as economic growth is concerned. We talked about improvements to the resources, increases in quantity of natural resources, human resources, and capital. Also in this component is the rules of game. So this is a central center of gravity of weakness for the Republicans across the state, the Democrats across the state, and Governor Cuomo specifically. They all think that this economic development model is working, and it's not working. If we look right here on the little chart I have up here, this is a production possibilities frontier. Before I can continue, let's get to that quickly. The definition of economic growth out of this, the macroeconomics textbook, an increase in the expansion of the production possibilities. So this right here, I created production possibilities frontier of New York State. On the y-axis, your vertical axis, we have the production and consumption of capital goods and services, and the production and consumption of consumer goods and services. Now, everything in your horizontal axis, your x-axis, is provided by the government. You have general administration, general rules of the game. They provide public goods and public services, as well as social insurance. Now, how are these paid for? Everything on the x-axis is paid for because the profits and proceeds of the things produced on the y-axis are taxed. So all of this is a trade-off and an opportunity cost. Now, if you do an internet search, a Google search on economic development, you're going to find a lot of stuff about public goods and services. You're going to find out stuff about infrastructure, education, on and on and on. They should be providing that at an effective and an efficient level anyway. You do not need a whole separate program of economic development for them to do that. It's part of their general rules of the game that are laid out in the New York State Constitution and the general rules of the game laid out by New York State. So you do not need this whole separate mechanism called economic development in your county, in your town, and up at the state level. You do not need it. They should be doing that proficiently anyhow by the rules of the game. So that is ad one. You need to run by the end of the week. You need to run it for a week and a half and distinguish the Astorino campaign from all your mainstream Republicans who are too busy or not able to articulate that, the differences between economic growth and the differences between economic development. That needs to be put out there. Say, hi, I'm Rob Astorino. Do you know the difference between economic growth and economic development? Because I don't think the governor does, and he hasn't explained it right. So here's 15 seconds of what that is. Good luck. Now, we're going to flip over to the hydraulic fracturing issue. So now, soak this in for a minute. Capital goods and services, consumer goods and services, general administration, public goods and services, social insurance. Okay, the reason we are in an economic development mode, why we can't have economic growth, is because they say this. The market has failed. There's negative environmental externalities. We need to distribute everything because there's inequality. And these are pressures that bear down on the production possibilities frontier. And you can look at, these are all statutes, administrative regulations, judicial precedents at every level, from the town and the county to state itself. Half of them are probably written in the Constitution. So you can see the pressures from expanding capital goods and services and consumer goods and services. Here we go. Let's talk about hydraulic fracturing. The 4 ways to expand and increase the production possibilities frontier are through increases in capital stock, increases in resource availability, increases in technological innovation, and improvements to the rules of the game. Now, hydraulic fracturing is a technological innovation that was developed in the Barnett shale fields in Texas. What they did, they decided to drill horizontally. They drilled down and then drilled horizontally into the shale and blasted it with a secret mixture to extract the gas. So essentially, hydraulic fracturing is a technological innovation, which, when capital stock is increased, when they buy more trucks, when they buy more drills, when they hire more people, will increase resource availability. So right there you have all 3. Hydraulic fracturing is a technological innovation that will increase capital stock and resource availability in the Empire State in the Marcellus Shale Formation. Why isn't it doing that? Because the rules of the game prohibit it from doing that. Now, when did we just change the rules of the game? I think it was last November. Didn't we change the state constitution? We changed the rules of the game to allow casino gaming, did we not? And what was that based on? Was that based on economic growth, or was that based on economic development? So, you're going to change the Constitution of New York State to allow casino gaming. Now, where is the increase in capital stock associated with that? Where is the increase in resource availability associated with that? Where is the increase in technological innovation associated with that? If you want to classify, a video poker machine as a technological innovation that's going to expand the production possibilities frontier, you're probably voted for casino gaming and for Governor Cuomo the last time. The point is, improvements of the rules of the game can be specifically targeted and coordinated to increase technological innovation, increase resource availability, and increase capital stock. And that argument needs to be made in the hydrofracking argument. Now, we're reasonable people, and we understand there needs to be environmental benchmarks and there needs to be efficiency benchmarks. There needs to be efficiency benchmarks so the companies who are looking to hydrofrack can do so in a cost-effective manner, and there needs to be environmental benchmarks in place to make sure everything doesn't get contaminated. So instead of doing that hard work and doing actual real policy making, they said, all right, well, let's put a constitutional amendment on the ballot to allow casino gaming. So you can't hammer that out. That's why we need leadership instead of people who are in control who don't know what they're talking about. So you can make the argument that hydraulic fracturing will increase technological innovation, resource availability, and capital stock by improvements in the rules of the game that take into account the environmental benchmarks to keep the environment safe, and the efficiency benchmarks which will make it cost effective for the companies to drill and people to create jobs. So those are my 2 ideas for ads that should be run, I think, immediately. I hope you guys can disentangle all that in a timely manner. But that's just, off the top of my head, because I feel like giving free advice at 20 after 8 on the 6th of October. Because I think if you're going to be running a campaign and you're not going to take advantage of hitting your opposition and those in your party in the center of gravity with the economic issues, what are you doing? You need to do it. It has to be done. That everybody needs to be hit in the center of gravity with the economic argument, because those who are on the wrong side of it, their credibility and legitimacy will be diminished, and it could possibly be flipped in November. So you guys got a lot of work to do. If you need anything, at Corey Newton 78 on Twitter. Good luck. Good luck.